For the last 3 years, I've been in an EV-only household, and I learned a lot through this experience. But it was time to say goodbye to my last EV, and now it's time to say hello to the new ride, a 2025 Rivian R1S Gen 2. Here's everything you need to know about this car, the good and the not so good. Let's start. I've had this car for about 2 months now. That's a short period, but there's a lot of things that I love about it over the outgoing Tesla Model Y that we owned, and even gas cars. But at the same time, there are also things that are starting to rear their ugly head as the honeymoon phase starts to wear out. Rivian is like what happens when you try fusing nature and technology. It's the entire ethos of how they handle the look and feel of their cars, the design of the graphics, the vibe of the service centers, and even the accessories that they sell for these vehicles. Rivian describes itself with one word, and one word constantly: adventure. It's all over their website, but I don't think that word alone perfectly describes the vibe that they're going with this vehicle. It's capable of adventures, but it's also a very approachable looking vehicle. A Rivian feels like an inviting adventure, and they nail this vibe perfectly. The headlights look friendly with their oval shape. The UI has this friendly cel-shaded renditions of their cars and interiors. Their logo is a compass. But despite this friendly neighbor vibe, the exterior of the R1S is a pretty boxy vehicle. I mean, this looks massive online, but don't get me wrong, it's a mid-size SUV, not a full-size Suburban or something. The second row has your standard bench seating. However, there's no options for captain's chairs. Instead, you get this middle seat that can actually go down like this, which kind of gives the illusion of captain's chairs, but it's not really captain's chairs. And there is a third row. However, it's not very comfortable for large 6'3" giants like me. And you'll be doing some yoga poses trying to get out of it. Namaste. In the front, there is a large frunk that's quite spacious. This could fit a lot of groceries and can be used to keep smelly things you don't want stinking up the main cabin of your car. The trunk is even more spacious with a large compartment if you remove the floor, and you can even flatten the floor and make it even by elevating it like this. There's tie down points with these little pucks so that your items don't go flying around the back. And there's even a 120 volt household outlet that supports up to 1500 watts. This way you can keep your devices charged when you go on things like adventures in the great outdoors. And there's even buttons to push down the second row seats, but no buttons to bring it back up. Those you have to move up manually. And the third row seats are also completely manual. No way to pull them out with any kind of buttons, and there's no pull tabs to pull them up either. So both the second and third rows have to be pulled up manually, which could be a huge pain point if you're on the shorter side. It's still a huge pain point for someone tall. Besides that, the back is a split gate, with the top being powered and the bottom being manual. This bottom portion makes a great bench that you can just sit down on and prepare for your adventures. Maybe this is putting on some ski shoes or changing shoes for hiking. And you can even put up this bottom portion so that it acts more like an item stopper, preventing all of your stuff from rolling out of the back. Now you might think that's a little excessive. However, when we took this vehicle to our adventure in Big Bend, it came in handy. And at the same time, it was a difficult journey, and I'll have more details about that trip. And if you want to learn more, I'll have a video out on that pretty soon. But the point is, these adventure-focused features came in clutch. But that doesn't mean it's not great for everyday usage either, because it is. All this extra space and storage is perfect for your Costco or grocery runs. And I don't think your kids will be complaining about all this space either. On the interior, I love how this vehicle looks. It's kind of got that futuristic, look at me, I'm an EV kind of feel going on with it. It's got a driver display to let me see the speed, GPS, direction, and what song is currently playing. Then it has a large 15-inch display that controls basically everything about the car, and even a rear seat display so that your passengers get a level of control as well. On this passenger display, you can control the car's mobile hotspot, and this consistently had better signal than my phone in rural areas. There's also so much nice detail in this vehicle. Everywhere you touch, there's something premium feeling. There's perforated faux leather seats mixed with fabric, a nice wooden dash as an option, suede-like headliners, and even metallic trim pieces all throughout the cabin. There's a giant panoramic roof that extends from the first and second row of the car. And there's customizable ambient LED lights surrounding the entire cabin. The design and material quality is just, it's great. The interior I'm sitting in right now is Rivian's Ocean Coast interior. I like the whole vibe that they got going on here. The center console is great. It's large and spacious, and the knee space in between the front passenger and the driver has a nice little area where you can place your shopping bags, your purse, or your box of tissues. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire thing is perfect. The wireless charging pad is supposedly improved. However, when you place your phone here, it still slides around while you're driving. So it was hard to get consistent charge for my phone, and instead I opted to get a third-party MagSafe wireless charging pad to charge my phone instead. There's no glove box. However, you have these tiny little compartments in between the legs of both the front passenger and the driver's side seats. These compartments don't fit too much. However, you could get away with packing some napkins, maybe a snack, and even some sunglasses that don't fit your face right. But I do have some negative things to say about the interior as well. There's the fact that there's random little rattles while driving that I can't just pin down exactly. The door handle, probably the part of the car that you touch the most, has these random creaks and rattles when you try to open or close it. Just listen to this. It just doesn't sound very premium. To be completely fair, these are like the most minor little nitpicks, and in the grand scheme of things aren't really a big deal, but you run out of things to complain about when there's so many great things about the vehicle. To me, those are just glaring oversights for what is otherwise a premium feeling cabin and space that I love being in. My family and friends that sit in this car have all complimented how nice it looks and feels, and it really is a pretty vehicle inside. And so that brings us to a whole nother topic altogether, and that's how this isn't technically Rivian's first vehicle. Rivian's first version of the R1S was their Gen 1 R1S, and they've been constantly iterating on these vehicles. But this year, they had a factory shutdown to update the vehicles and released this Gen 2 version of both the R1S and R1T. What I have right here is the Gen 2 R1S, which is the latest version, and there's some changes to it that you would see compared to the outgoing models. Like how this light bar right here is slightly smaller than the Gen 1 version with a segmented charging light bar as well. Or how the front of this car is slightly smaller than the previous Gen 1. And now the cameras are upgraded to the point where it puts most other vehicle automakers to shame. I can see everything so vividly and clearly on all the different cameras. All these changes are because Rivian is trying to both improve the quality of their vehicles while at the same time cutting costs, trimming the fat, so that it puts them to a better financial position. While the cosmetic changes are very marginal, it'd be very hard to tell unless you were standing next to a Gen 1 and a Gen 2, there has been major improvements to basically everything else about the car, all for the sake of simplifying and making the car less expensive to manufacture and improving the electronics architecture of the vehicle. The Gen 2 version of this car will have more software updates than the Gen 1s moving forward, which to me as an owner, with all these different cost savings and simplifications, which I hope translates to cheaper repairs when things do happen to break. But at the same time, things that used to be nice to haves on the Gen 1 are now upgrades on the Gen 2, like the integrated air compressor, camp speaker, premium audio, and prices as a whole for the same spec have increased. But if you care more about what the vehicle is now versus what it can be in the future, the Gen 1s could be much easier on your wallet, especially pre-owned. These are pricey vehicles. Besides that, the interiors and exteriors of these cars look similar. You probably noticed quite a few Gen 1 Rivian shots in this video. I actually ended up getting a Gen 1 Rivian R1T. It's actually over there. We're using it to carry all of our different film equipment today. It's a long story on how we got that, but let me know if you want to learn more of my experience with that as well. And I'll think about it. And if you find yourself wanting to purchase a Rivian vehicle yourself, they introduced a new referral program recently that all Rivian owners are a part of. And if you happen to purchase a Rivian vehicle using that referral code, that gets the referrer and the referee some nice perks. So if you're interested in buying a Rivian, check out the link below for my referral code. It's under my wife's name because we switched the account to her name some time ago, but it's annoying to change back. But I promise, it's me. Rivian works kind of like Tesla in the fact that they don't have any dealership. However, you can schedule demo drives at their service centers or their Rivian spaces, which is kind of like their showrooms. But enough about that. Let's talk about the software in this thing. Software is an area that I think Rivian does well, both inside and outside of the car. Inside, most things are controlled by this big display right here. There's no dedicated home screen, but whichever app you do open up takes up the entirety of the main display, with smaller windows popping in on the left for access to different parts of the vehicle, as well as a window popping in on the right to control your music playback by the passenger side. There's a security system built inside of the Rivian called GearGuard. This is similar to Tesla's Sentry mode. There's a screen dedicated to different drive modes, vehicle stats, and there's even a camping screen that lets you adjust the settings based on your adventure, like turning on and off the outlets, leveling the car, turning off the main display, and controlling the AC. There's this YouTube channel called Charge Set Go that's just so peaceful to watch. They take their R1S out car camping, and it's the type of thing I really want to do more often with my own R1S. The second row has its own display too, right down here, that allows the passengers so much more control over their own experiences, like adjusting the AC for the second and third rows, changing the music, and locking and unlocking doors. And they can even access the built-in hotspot on this display. But luckily, all these settings are adjustable on the main menu of this main display as well. So there are actually multiple ways that you can use car keys with your Rivian. There's first a key card, a carabiner key fob, a wristband, and your smartphone. I think for most people, like me, it's gonna end up being their smartphone that they control their vehicle with. Through the Rivian app, you're able to control so much about the vehicle. You can open and close different parts of the car, precondition the car before getting into it, and even see and change its charging status and just get an overall view of how your car is doing. If you're using an iPhone, you get live activity feeds when you precondition or charge the car too. I love this feature because it means I'm not constantly looking at an app on my phone, but I still have an idea as to what's happening to the vehicle. Like on road trips, when we're charging and enjoying a nice meal, I can take a quick glance at my phone to see how full the battery is. And living in the scorching, humid swamp that is Houston, Texas, as you can tell, I am sweating right now, it's humid, I always precondition the car right before jumping in, even if it's just been sitting in the garage. Besides that, the Rivian app has iOS widgets that you can keep on your home screen to monitor and control the vehicle. The phone key is my favorite car key method for the R1S. That doesn't mean you can't use it in conjunction with the other ones. But the phone key makes the Rivian feel like a fully functioning smart home instead of, well, just another car. I've said a lot of positives about their software, but it's not all perfect. There's so many weird little glitches that on their own are a minor inconvenience, but altogether become pretty annoying. When playing a Dolby Atmos track in Apple Music, the Atmos track is whisper quiet, but the moment you change it to a track that's not Dolby Atmos, it plays way louder than the other one at the same exact volume. That means you have to adjust the volume after every few tracks so that your eardrums don't start bursting. And the biggest issue that I've seen so far, and this seems to be specifically a Gen 2 R1S Premium Auto specific problem, is that the audio sounds terrible from the front seats. It feels like it's not making good use of all the speakers around the vehicle and everything is just muddy. But if you're sitting in the second row in the middle seat like I am, the audio sounds great. It's like it's tuned specifically for the exact middle of the car, when for the most part, it might just be two people in the front. I don't have this problem in my Gen 1 Rivian R1T. That thing has fantastic audio regardless of where you sit in the cabin. But luckily, Rivian is constantly and consistently providing updates and fixes for their vehicles. Like in the brief time that we've owned our vehicle, we've had maybe 4 or 5 different software updates. I'm gonna pause the video right here because just recently, just yesterday night, I got a new Rivian update to our vehicle. A lot of the issues that I mentioned earlier were fixed. So I'm gonna include all of them right here, as well as some of the new issues that I've recently seen pop up. Anyway, back to the video. And in these software updates, they fix existing bugs as well as add new software features. Like just recently, there was a software update that fixed an issue with Apple Music album art not appearing consistently. They even added a live gear guard view in the app, letting you view all the different cameras around the car while you're away from it, all from your phone. So overall, I think the software features and the updates are great, but at the same time, recently, software stability needs a bit of work. Okay, let's just say you're ready. Let's just say you've decided, I want to get myself into a Rivian. Well, what's it like switching from a gas vehicle to a Rivian, or even another EV like a Tesla to a Rivian? Well, let's talk about it. All right, let's focus on if you're switching from a gas car first. The Rivian is a one-pedal driving EV, which means it has brakes that recharge your battery. So many EV manufacturers like Rivian, Tesla, Ford, and Chevy integrate this into their EVs in the accelerator pedal. When you push down on the accelerator, it's kind of like a regular automatic car. It speeds up, but as you lift your foot off the accelerator, it no longer accelerates and maintains speed. And if you take your foot off the accelerator even more or completely, the car will begin regenerative braking. This is the one pedal driving that EV drivers mention. And once you've adjusted to it, you don't really need to use the regular brake pedal anymore, except for some situations when you really need to stop super fast. Honestly, it takes like a day or two to adjust to it, and it's pretty easy to go between driving an EV and a gas vehicle. The Rivian R1S is also super touchscreen focused. Most of your functions, including climate control, is through the touchscreen, for better or for worse. But things like your blinkers, gear shifters, lights, and windshield wiper are still all on the steering wheel and are different levers, which we kind of take for granted now. There's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which can be a deal breaker, but Rivian does do a decent job at giving you different streaming options between Tidal, Spotify, and Apple Music. But we all know the biggest, most obvious difference between a gas car and an EV is the way you fuel the car compared to your gas car. Back in 2023, a Rivian Senior Director of Customer Engagement said that 75% of their customers come from first-time EV buyers. So let's talk about it from that perspective. I've talked about this topic extensively in my long-term EV ownership video, like all the different costs associated with the maintenance I had to do with my Model Y. But the biggest difference that you as a potential buyer of a Rivian or any other EV will notice is charging instead of getting gas. But I'll take a blurb from that video I made and put it right here, but feel free to skip it if you don't care about the charging information or you already know all about it. The biggest thing you have to look at is, where are you gonna charge this thing? As a homeowner, it's easy for me to just call my local electrician, get a dedicated EV charger installed in my garage, and use that every single day. And it works great. If you live in an apartment or condo, your options can be significantly limited to the point where you might want to not consider an EV at all. EV charging is split into 3 different levels. Level 1, which uses your standard household outlet. Level 2, which uses a plug your washer or dryer uses, or a hardwired EV wall charger. And lastly, fast charging. Those Tesla superchargers, Electrify America stations, and some other brands that you see out and about. Think of it like this. If it's a level 1, it'll take a day or more to charge. If it's level 2, it'll take a few hours. And level 3, minutes to charge, usually within an hour. The actual speed depends on a bunch of different things like car, battery size, temperature, and speed of the chargers that you're using. The real major benefit of EVs comes from the convenience and cost effectiveness of a home level 2 charger. You get home after work or whatever you did that day with whatever battery percentage you're at, charge it up, and when you wake up in the morning, you have a full battery. You no longer have to go to a gas station, so you're not standing out there during winter in the freezing cold or during the summer sweating your butt off. But overall, not having to go to a gas station is such a great thing. I genuinely don't miss it. Except now, for all the garbage that I accumulate, I have to remember to throw it away when I get home instead of at the gas station while I'm filling up my car. Small price to pay. If you live in an apartment or condo, there might just be a wall outlet in the parking garage or parking lot that would take forever to charge your car. Plus, you'd have to talk to your property owner about getting approval to use it. But that's not to say that you can't own an EV living in an apartment or condo. A lot of apartments do have EV chargers. Just by looking on apartments.com, I can actually find a few. But in these situations, you play by your property owner's rules when it comes to charging. The cost of charging could be low or high, and the EV charging spot could be more expensive. All that information is still pretty accurate today. But now, Ford, Rivian, and GM vehicles have access to Tesla's charging network, meaning you get access to most of the charging infrastructure out there, and more manufacturers are joining in as well. But that's not to say that they're all the same cost. Charging at home, you pay what your electric rate is per kilowatt hour, but in an apartment or condo or public chargers, you're paying what that station wants to charge you, which leads to a very mixed and confusing experience. So each of the major fast charger brands, like EVgo, Electrify America, and Tesla for non-Tesla EVs, offer a free rate and subscription rate for charging. You have to pay a monthly fee to that brand of chargers to get the subscription rate, so usually it's not worth it unless you plan to use that brand's charging station often on a road trip and then cancel the subscription when it's done. Or don't bother subscribing in the first place if you're only using it once. I hate this aspect of EV charging because imagine if gas stations did this. Regardless, it's annoying, and Rivian does have their own charging network, but it's a pretty small network with under 100 stations across the states. In my own experience, they are usually the most cost-effective option for Rivian owners because their pricing is competitive, rivaling Tesla's membership pricing for non-Teslas at superchargers. Now, charging as a whole, you might think having the shortest range R1S, I would get a lot of range anxiety or fear that I'm going to run out of charge wherever I am. But really, I don't, because you'll always have a place to charge, either at home, at some workplaces, and public fast chargers while on road trips. Now, will you be able to charge fast? Well, that all depends on the public infrastructure. And that public charging infrastructure is better than you'd think. And you'd even be able to find chargers in remote areas. And I'll talk more about that on that road trip video I have planned coming soon. But this is where charging gets even more confusing for new people to EVs. With the Rivian from 2025 and before, the car has this charging port, a J1772 and CCS1 port. The top half is J1772, which is used for level 1 and level 2 charging, and with the flap down, it accepts CCS1, which is used for beefier fast charging. In the near future, Rivian and many other EV manufacturers are switching to Tesla's port, NACS, meaning this won't be a problem in the future. However, right now, all non-Tesla EVs come with this port, and most non-Tesla charging stations have the J1772 or CCS1 cable. But to use Tesla's chargers, the largest network of chargers in the US, on your Rivian, you'll need an adapter. See, it can be really confusing. When you purchase a Rivian, they'll ship you an adapter that lets you use Tesla superchargers. And spoiler alert, on my next Rivian related video, this is essential to a good stress-free road trip. Trust me, I own a third-party adapter, which Rivian doesn't officially support, but it's worked out for me. Use it at your own risk. Tesla has by far the best charging network in the US, and having access to it makes EV ownership feel almost seamless. Then for level 1 and level 2 chargers, you'll want a NACS to J1772 adapter. This is useful to have in case you're at a place like a hotel or at a friend's house who owns a Tesla and only has a Tesla charging cable for you to plug in and still charge your car. But since most public level 1 and level 2 chargers are J1772 plugs anyway, it's usually the other way around, with Teslas using this adapter in public spaces. So this isn't necessary, but it's good for emergencies. Regardless, today or even 3 years from now, I think we're stuck with the adapter game regardless of what port you have. Only in like 10 or 15 years or so will we all be switched over to NACS and all the public charging infrastructure switches with it. So we're a long way away from that. One final thing that I need to mention is that Rivian offers different battery tiers and different performance tiers for their vehicles, all ranging from a standard pack, a large pack, and a max pack battery, as well as dual, tri, and quad motor configurations for both of their truck and their SUV. The one I have is the lowest tier option, but that's only because I think that's plenty and I don't necessarily need the crazy performance of a tri or quad motor. However, if you do end up going with a tri or quad motor, the interiors are improved with their Ascend trim, which is a more nice, more luxe looking interior. That slate sky just looks so great. But again, as an owner who has the smallest range battery, genuinely, I feel no sense of range anxieties. And that's just from my own personal experience taking it on trips. You do charge more frequently while on a road trip, but those stops are typically also shorter because you're trying to stay on the lower end of the battery. All right, but enough talk about all this. Let's go for a little drive. All right, so what's driving the R1S like? Overall, it's pretty smooth. I just like how it just eats and smooths out all the little bumps that you have on the road. Cabin and wind noise while driving are pretty low. However, this is a heavy vehicle. I mean, it's a mid-size SUV, right? But it's still a relatively fun car to drive because it can go 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. However, if you're looking for sporty handling, I don't think this is the right vehicle. Instead, you'd be looking at the R1T, which I think drives so much better than this vehicle, and I would opt for that instead if driving dynamics is the main thing that you care about. But the R1S is still a really comfortable, spacious drive, and it's just very nice to exist in. So I took a day trip with my family to Austin, and on that ride I didn't get any complaints about ride quality from the second row. So I'm assuming ride quality in the second and third rows aren't that bad either. However, I did get complaints making that same trip when we took our older Tesla Model Y. I sat in the second row of that car once, and I'm easily motion sick, very easily motion sick, regardless of vehicle. And in that car, I got motion sick. On the R1S, regenerative braking is pretty smooth. It just eases into it. So I think your passengers would have a better time and get less motion sick in a vehicle like this. Rivian has some driver assistance features called Driver Plus. And if you boil it down, what it really is adaptive cruise control as well as lane keep assist. Rivian's more robust system is in their Gen 2 platform. This system's called the Rivian Autonomy platform. It has all the features of Driver Plus and one additional feature, which is automatic lane changes. So when you turn on the blinker, it automatically does a lane change for you and then turns off your blinker. That's it. Additional features are going to be added over time, and that's where the main differences between the Gen 1 and Gen 2 will exist, in their self-autonomous features. Let's be clear here. It is in no way, shape, or form at the same level as Tesla's Autopilot, and definitely nowhere near the features that they offer in their full self-driving package or even their enhanced Autopilot package. But Rivian's goal over time is to make sure that this Rivian Autonomy platform gets better and better, and hopefully that also means more and new features. On long road trips, the features of the Rivian Autonomy platform and Driver Plus did come in handy. It helped with our fatigue because it assisted in all these different micro adjustments that we normally have to worry about, but instead it smoothed it out and handled it for us, leading to overall a better mood on these long trips. I do think there's some room for improvement though. For example, it mainly only works on the majority of major roads. Why not focus on more adventure focused roads the way they advertise adventure as their main ethos, their main design element? Like map out the roads to and from national parks. That would be great and fit in perfectly with what they're going for. But I will say, when it works great. Okay, at this point, it's conclusion time. Knowing everything that I know now about Rivian, would I have made the same purchasing decision that I did 2 months ago? Or would I go with a different vehicle altogether? Well, to be honest with you, it hasn't been all that long, and I do still feel that sense of excitement of new vehicle ownership. So there's that honeymoon bias. But I will say, I've never enjoyed owning a vehicle more than this one at the beginning of ownership, even though it's only been a few months. The combination of tech, vehicle capability, and interior design really sells it for me. It's been nothing but a joy to own and has fit into my life with no major issues. Just minor, teeny tiny little minor gripes. Yes, the front lights are funky looking. The software needs to cook in the oven just a little further, and Rivian as a company needs to become more profitable to stay alive long term. But the complete product package that they have today is fantastic, and it's amazing that this is barely their second generation car. I want to see how much better they can get with this, but at the same time, EV tech is improving so fast. You might want to even consider leasing. Rivian and other EV automakers are making some really cool vehicles coming in the next few years, and at the same time, switching their cars to the Tesla NACS connector in the near future. And that port will make lives so much easier. But yeah, those are my thoughts so far. I love everything about this car, but let's see if that's the case in a year or two. Anyway, what do you personally think? Is the Rivian R1S an enticing EV? What other EVs are you looking at? There's so many cool ones out there, but I couldn't keep my eyes off of this one. What makes Rivians interesting? What do they need to improve to get better? Is there any piece of EV related content you'd like to see on this channel? Leave all that down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.